Hey, happy Wednesday, happy hump day, all. That time of the week, Left Fresh Podcast. With your host, one and only Left Fresh. Follow me on Instagram at This Is Left Fresh. Follow me on TikTok at This Is Left Fresh. Um, Here with you today, getting ready to wrap up the NFL season. One last game to go. Hope you all saw the conference championship. Hope everyone had a great weekend watching it. Hope everybody stayed warm. Certain parts of the southeast region had a hectic ice storm happening. Hope everyone was safe, warm, and didn't have too many difficulties getting through that. But glad you're here. Glad you're tuning in. Appreciate you all. Thank you all again. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for me. Like, comment, engage. You can even comment after if you're unable to make it. Those who can't make the live, feel free to catch it after. You're driving on your way to work. Coming home from work. Got time to sit around and watch. Go ahead and give it a listen and go ahead and see what we got going on over there. You can drop a comment, whatever. Any type of engagement, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Definitely appreciate you all jumping on with me. Like I said, if you stay tuned long enough, Saturday, we're aiming for the music portion or non-sports portion of the show. So this Saturday, look forward to hearing me talking music, discussing music. It's been a great year last year in hip hop, and tend to cover it and pick up where we left off going into this year. Pretty good releases. So, you know, January 31st, Saturday, it'll be alive. I'll be sending everybody a link and everything just to get in touch and everything, stay tapped in and everything like that. Baby Jay was good, man. Appreciate you jumping on with me, bro. Definitely getting into the sports, man. Definitely getting real interesting. Definitely getting interesting. Football's getting ready to wrap up, but there's always off-season news. The NBA's getting ready to pick up, trade deadline, All-Star, and everything like that. But yeah, I'm not gonna hold you all, man. Let's get right into it. You know what I mean? Like I said, hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone is safe. Hope everybody thawed himself out, or still trying to stay warm. Still cold and freezing in Georgia here, in the southeast region as well. So, but let's see the results of the NFC, AFC conference championships and see who's going to the Super Bowl to represent us in these conferences. And yeah, the first game was a blizzard. Turned into a blizzard throughout the game. It was a low-scoring, ugly defensive stalwart game that started off with a touchdown from Jarrett Stidham of the Broncos, backing up Bo Nix after Bo Nix went down for the season. Did what he could. Just that Patriots defense is probably just as good as that Broncos defense. Very tough. Shout out to Mike Vrabel. Got a well-disciplined, well-coached defense. Drake May didn't have the greatest game, but he didn't throw the game away. Did enough pivotal and critical plays to where it didn't cost them the game. Very slim margin. A lot of missed field goals. Real ugly game. The Patriots pulled it out, 10-7. We move on. And I know a lot of people who thought that the Patriots would be out of the loop for a while. Well, they're right back in it. The Tom Brady, Belichick years are behind us, and yet they reformed, got the coach, got the quarterback, right back in it. So here we are again. For many people who thought the Patriots should have been gone or out of the picture for a while, well, here we are again. Broncos, very good season. Second year for Bo Nix. Unfortunate injury, that kept him out, but injuries on the offensive side of the ball kind of limited the Broncos for the most part of the season. J.K. Dobbins had some injuries as well. That hurt the running game as well. The defense was great, but the Patriots kind of ran into this thing where a lot of people were saying, well, the schedule was kind of weak. But it's like, no, they went against some of the top defenses. They just went against some of the worst offenses. But, they got a great defense as well. So, it is what it is, at this point. They stayed healthier. Drake May didn't lose them games. Obviously, that's how they made this run. And here they are in the Super Bowl with a second-year quarterback, Drake May. Battle of the second year. Well, Bo Nix was out. So, but, yeah, it was a great year for second-year quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels got hurt a little bit, but he had a great run as a rookie. Caleb Williams made a nice win a playoff game, made a nice run as well. So, yeah, it was a good run for a lot of these second-year quarterbacks. But the Patriots. Moving on. Next game was like I seen somewhere online where it's like they said the Patriots and Broncos were like the JV game, and this was the varsity game was the Rams and Seahawks. But I like to give the Patriots a little more credit than that. I think people, I got the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, but I still think the Patriots can put up a better fight than people are not giving them, not giving them a chance to do. But yeah, the Seahawks was like they're running on all cylinders, and the only team that looked like they could stop them was the Rams. And Rams kind of just shot themselves in the foot in close, pivotal moments. Didn't make the right decision when they needed to make the right decisions, and Seattle capitalized off of it. Seattle made the stops when they needed to make the stops, especially that critical goal line stance. I mean, their critical goal line stance when they was backed up in their own end zone. Matt Stafford threatening to score, and that game winning stop. I mean, Devin Witherspoon, one of the elite corners in football. Organized chaos 14. What's going on? Yeah. Take the points when you got to take the points. I mean, it could have been a one-score game. Possibly could have got the ball back, put a little more pressure on them. But you know, I will say that Seattle managed the game well, and that's attributed to Sam Darnold not losing the game. You know, he didn't go in there trying to outduel Matt Stafford. You know, he just kind of played his game, made the throws that needed to be made, and you know, didn't have to do too much because he had a defense that could get the ball back for him, and he also had, Jackson Smith and Jiba is one of the elite receivers in the NFL right now. He has completely jumped into that, to me, that top three with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. One of the elite route runners, one of the better hands. He's like one of the most complete receivers in football at this point. And for Sam Darnold to inherit him after Justin Jefferson is just great luck. And that's just poor decision making on the Minnesota Vikings on that note. Yeah, the Seahawks close it out. They look like a high-powered machine. They're favored to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I got them beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl as well. I think Seattle just got this machine that, for many people who want to go down memory lane, this team was almost pretty much built off the Russell Wilson trade. Yeah, the Denver Broncos gave up so many picks and other players to get Russell Wilson that Seattle basically took those picks, cashed them in, and got a loaded roster off of them. Young players, young stars. So, I mean, it's definitely, Seattle's great front office. Schneider's the GM. I mean, I'm gonna give you some of the picks that they came into. Okay, in the Russell Wilson trade, the regular players they got was backup quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant. We got Shelby Harris. But the picks and who they became, the star offensive lineman was a draft pick that they got in the Russell Wilson trade. Charles Cross, they got Devin Witherspoon, their star corner in there. I mean, they got so many core players in that Russell Wilson trade that they rebuilt a whole new roster. Geno Smith became expendable when they got Sam Darnold. I mean, and that made all the difference. Yeah, Schneider is one of the best GMs in football, not named Howie Roseman from the Eagles. Howie Roseman from the Philadelphia Eagles is the best GM in football for the most part up to this point. But yeah, Schneider's definitely Schneider's definitely right there, right next to him as far as building a team and constructing a team. He was there with Pete Carroll when they built the 2013 Legion of Boom team. So yeah, it's no surprise that they would bounce back and be in the picture again. Which leads to the big pivotal piece, the quarterback. Like I said, Sam Darnold came in, like I said, all playoff long. He was going to be one of those quarterbacks that's on trial. Without Mahomes, without Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow was not in the playoffs. Without the really elite quarterbacks, the other quarterbacks that are starters that are, had struggles in big games, had the narrative of the struggles in big games and everything like that, that light was on him. It was like, don't let it be you. And Sam Darnold has made it to this point. Everybody had questions about him, but a lot of that is attributed to him landing on the right team. That Seattle team is loaded. You know what I mean? And it's like I said, you landed probably a top three receiver who just developed into a top three receiver, Jackson Smith and Jiba. Kirk Shaheed was traded from the Saints to the Seattle Seahawks mid-season. He's an explosive vertical receiver, and he made a big difference as far as being there, as far as on kick returns, big plays down the field. He reminds me of Percy Harvin in 2013 when they got him from the Bills, and from the Vikings. The Vikings and Bills, yeah, he was on both of those teams at one point, but yeah, when he ended up with Seattle on that Super Bowl team, Percy Harvin was that explosive, game-changing playmaker that blew that offense wide open. And I think Kirk Shaheed is looking just like that. I think Schneider had that idea when he traded for him, too. I think Drake May will rise to the occasion in the Super Bowl. Yeah, second-year quarterback. We seen Joe Burrow look great in the Super Bowl. Other than the Aaron Donald sack that won him the game, Joe Burrow looked great in the Super Bowl, so I'm not going to rule it out that a second-year quarterback, can actually play well and not have the jitters. But at the same time, now you're going against a quarterback who has went through the fire, defied the big game, questioning, can Sam Darnold win the big game? Now the question is, can he manage the game better than Sam Darnold? Now veteran quarterback who's now 27, 28 years old, who's had experience, who's had the reps, who's played on many different teams at this point. Drake May has not been here, and he's winning against some great defense, right? This is no different. The Seattle Seahawks defense gives up the least amount of points per game in the league. So I seen a lot of narrative about him going against all these top 5 defenses. Yeah, Seattle's no rest for the weary for Drake May. And the New England Patriots defense is great too. However, they haven't won against an offense like the Seattle Seahawks all playoff run. And I think that's the difference. I don't think New England is going to be able to keep up with Seattle offense. I think both teams are great defensively, but at the same time, I think Seattle can outweigh New England's defense more than New England's offense can outweigh Seattle's defense. I think that's the determining factor. But yeah, Sam Darnold, as you know, I don't know where he ranks in football and quarterback discussions. I don't know where he ranks as far as elite quarterbacks, anything like that. I just know that he fit in the right system. He was a good enough quarterback to get them over the hump. This is a team that was, basically a Geno Smith upgrade away from being a real contender. And it shows exactly how good this team was. All he had to do was upgrade from Geno Smith. No disrespect to Geno Smith or anything like that, but I think he's a more veteran quarterback at this point, kind of later in his career. Sam Darnold just provided that spark that they needed on offense. The running game looks better with Sam Darnold there. Of course, the receiving game opens up. You got weapons and everything of that nature. You got a great offensive line. This team kind of hit that perfect storm where everything is brewing at the right time. Sam Darnold stepped right in. If you're the Minnesota Vikings fans, my condolences. I don't know what J.J. McCarthy's going to hold for you. I don't think it's going to be Sam Darnold like, and that's just stating it lightly, depending on based on the trajectory that we're seeing from J.J. McCarthy. But if you're the Vikings, you probably just close any window you had of winning or even staying put in the NFC North without Sam Darnold. I mean, you're basically in essence looking for a quarterback again. If J.J. McCarthy doesn't show you anything, then you can't really have any. You can't even have any footing in saying, "Hey, we need to go out here and look for another quarterback," even though you just had a quarterback. That's really rough. And on another note, another thing that was pointed out is that Sam Darnold was picked in the 2018 draft. And if you don't know that 2018 draft, that draft had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, 2 quarterbacks that have been under scrutiny of winning big games and making it to the Super Bowl for years now. And I'm not saying that justifies Sam Darnold over them or anything of that nature, but it is ironic and funny that he ended up getting to the Super Bowl before they did. And the team that drafted him doesn't even have him. Shout out to the New York Jets, who decided that they're going to look for new coaches after everybody's hired their coaches and everything. So if you're listening right now, let's all take a good moment to have a laugh at the front office of the New York Jets. But yeah, other than that, we got our Super Bowl matchup locked. Patriots and Seahawks rematch from 11 years ago, 2014. Everybody knows the Russell Wilson goal line throw, intercepted. That right there, I think, ugly moment for Seahawks fans. Probably going to get some get back about that. So, yeah, definitely going to be an interesting Super Bowl. 2 weeks from now, I can't wait. Me personally, I'm not a big Pro Bowl guy myself. It was cool in the earlier years. I think it's more of a flag football type of thing now. Shout out to Shedeur Sanders for making one. I know there's a lot of controversy about him making it. Me personally, I didn't care because a lot of times Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything. It hasn't held any weight enough for me to care about it. Personally, I'm sorry. That's just how I feel about the Pro Bowl at this point. Next week's going to be kind of like a formality as far as the festivities and the Super Bowl and everything like that. I'm looking forward to 2 weeks from now to go to get the thing. So definitely going to be interested in watching those 2 teams finish off the season. Great season, a wild and unpredictable season. Definitely looking forward to it. Also looking towards the offseason, coaching carousel has not stopped. A couple coordinators have went around. Mike McDaniel went to the Chargers. I think that was a good move to get him to Justin Herbert. Todd Monken also want to move from the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, there was a couple good coordinators, I think, that were needed in other different places. I think Philadelphia is still on the search for their coordinator to go with Nick Sirianni. I don't think anybody, there's a lot of talk about whether people are willing to really go to Philadelphia. A lot of high expectations and a lot of scrutiny there. So, but a lot of talent. I mean, it seems like the right coordinator should be able to make the tweaks necessary to help get that team to compete for. But yeah, nothing new out of that coaching carousel headline other than, just a couple coordinators and everything. I'm waiting for the quarterback carousel to start spinning. I'm waiting for the Kyler Murrays and Tua Tagovailoas. Quarterbacks that are in situations we know teams are trying to get rid of. But the question is, can they get rid of them? Are they stuck with those quarterbacks? Stuck with those salaries? Who's drafted a quarterback? The coaching carousel pretty much winded down, but the quarterback carousel is where I'm with. Everybody needs a quarterback address. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant about it. That'll be interesting to see how that picks up. Yeah, and of course, as of yesterday, leading into today, we've had a little bit of controversy about the Hall of Fame choice. One particularly being Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is not selected to go first ballot, and a lot of people are in shock and awe. Like, the resume Bill Belichick has, how can he not be a first ballot Hall of Famer? What can really be going on here? Like, can Bill Belichick be snubbed? And I mean, there's a lot of speculation as to why, a lot of talk. But Jimmy Johnson voiced his opinions about it, voiced his frustration. And I'm going to show you what he said on this radio show. He calls in, and here's what he had to say. About a 5-minute clip. Good.
Jimmy Johnson, Hall of Fame coach. Enjoyed the hell out of that championship game, except we came up a little short. Joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing?
Joe, I'm livid right now, to be honest with you. Word came out last night that Bill Belichick was not first ballot Hall of Fame, which is absolutely ridiculous. The guy won 8 Super Bowls. He's one of the winning. We can argue back and forth who's the greatest coach of all time, but he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Unbelievable. And it's a secret ballot thing. And, I promise you, if the voters, if it was public, the ones that voted against him or didn't vote for him would not come public. They'd be too embarrassed to show their face. It's ridiculous that they didn't put him first ballot Hall of Famer.
Jimmy, we've been talking about this, and you're right. I mean, 333 wins. I feel like they wanted the belt. I don't know how you feel about the stuff he's been accused, the Deflategate, the Spygate, and that stuff.
Well, let me just stop you there, Joe.
Okay.
First of all, the Deflategate, was proven invalid. That was BS. The Spygate thing, let me tell you what. A lot of the teams in the league did this. In fact, we actually got it from Howard Mudd, who was the coach for Kansas City at the time. And he told us exactly how to do it, to film the opponent's, signal caller on and on. We tried it. It was just such a mess. We weren't very good at it. Howard Mudd was great. Howard was the offensive line coach, and he would actually signal to his offensive guard. You could see him in the huddle looking to the sideline. He would signal whether or not it was a blitz or whether or not it was zone, et cetera, and they were really good at it. And Howard Mudd later on went and coached for Bill Polian and Tony Dungy at Indianapolis. But we tried it, and it was such a mess. We weren't very good at it, so we stopped doing it. But I know, talking to the coaches around the league at that time, there were a lot of teams that did this, trying to steal signals, And so for them to blow this up and to make that an excuse for not putting him in the Hall of Fame is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I got to tell you, man, it's hard. He's second all-time, 333 wins, and I don't know if we're ever going to see anybody have 6 Super Bowl championships, not to mention 2 as a defensive coordinator with Parcells and the Giants. I just wonder, Jimmy, I'm sure you have too. You've dealt with ownership about Robert Kraft. If, people think, because Robert Kraft might be getting in as an owner, as you know, and
right.
And all these relationships and Bill rubbing the media, you know how Bill is.
Yeah. Oh, I know Bill. And Bill wasn't the most favorite by a lot of media people, and they're the ones voting. And you're right, Bob Kraft, an owner, hey, I'm not going to argue whether or not he belongs in or not. I could care less there. But I'm sure he's influenced some of the people because there's no love lost between Belichick and Kraft.
Right.
And that had, I'm sure something to do with it. But, the other thing, Joe, that bothers me, of course, I know Bill extremely well. If anybody's ever seen when he was on TV for the the top 100 players in the NFL of all time, he loves the NFL. He knows the history of the NFL more than anybody I've ever known. I mean, he is a coach through and through, and I know how great a coach the guy is. But he loves he loves the game. He loves the NFL, and this is going to be so disappointing. And he'll go in next year. I understand that, but it's not right for him not to go in right off the bat.
Yeah, and Jimmy, part of this thing is like when we get, and I'm guilty on the radio sometimes. I like certain guys and I don't. I don't know if you feel the same way. You coach guys and some guys you really like, and other guys you just don't care for, or coaches, and I just think the human part of this affected some of those guys. Bill Polian's an interesting one. He didn't remember his vote at first. And I was like, how the hell do you not know how you voted?
Are you kidding me? He didn't remember his vote. Yeah. And you're right. You're right. Some of the media guys might have said, well, he's going to get in. It's an automatic that he's going to get in. So I'm not going to vote for him, because I don't really like him. He wouldn't give me an interview, And so, hey, it is what it is, Joe. But
Dr. offers very valid insight on that. That at the same time, sometimes people just didn't like it. You know what I mean? Like with Belichick, he's a very strong personality. He kind of be truckling with the media. Jimmy Johnson mentioned Bill Polian right there. I mean, it's kind of fear-based. You know what I mean? So his resume, of course, speaks for itself. And you see, there was no urgency about him not getting in at all. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of teams did not rush. A lot of the voters saying, "Hey, he can get in, next time around." And it's like no urgency. There's other candidates that was in for the Hall of Fame that possibly could miss the opportunity, but they wanted to miss and figured that, hey, next time around, we'll definitely get in. But out of that, reluctance just automatically voted in just came from personal bias. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Bill Belichick do post-game interviews with the coach of the Patriots. I mean, he didn't give the media a lot to work with. A lot to work with. He wasn't really good at answering questions. You know what I mean? He just wanted to just move on to the next game. Didn't really give the media a lot of anything to go with. And a lot of the media, those are the same people that came down and voted. So it's like, it's like being at a regular job. You're a great employee, but not very good socially with your coworkers. You're not, you're wondering why you don't get voted employee of the month. Yeah, your numbers are great, but it's like sometimes people gotta like you. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the business, especially as a coach. Maybe not as a player so much, because the players don't, but especially as a coach. And then to have, even though Jimmy Johnson cleared up a lot of the scandals and everything like that, just the writers, media personnel, it's maybe rival coaches around the league. It may not be everybody who's particularly liking it. I mean, honestly, the shock factor of him not being voted automatically kind of just put it all in perspective. Like, hey, yeah, I mean, you've been around for a long time and kind of had your ways and came back down to it and came back on it. Like, even with your resume, no denying, like I said, no urgency at all about him not getting in. period. He's not a first ballot. Insult to himself. You know what I mean? I think many have said peg Bill Belichick as being petty. In turn, that's, a lot of some of those writers on that panel like want to be petty like that. For lack of better explanation, but there's no doubt in my mind Bill Belichick. I don't think the panel who didn't vote him in like they're definitely going to vote him next year. More than likely than not. So, I don't think there's an urgency in that, but it was just a real petty gesture. Organized chaos. So if the reporter's vote is not good with the reporters, he had to know it was going to be an issue. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the awkwardness of being who you are. Is like, maybe it's the lack of self-awareness that, hey, or just people are just one-sided people. They think, hey, they can be this certain way and still expect people to be a certain way with them. And it's like, no, people, some of those media writers matched energy. Bill Belichick didn't give a lot of energy, and a lot of them, some of those writers is just like, we'll wait next year. This is one guy wanted to get it real bad, and it came down to him and Bill Belichick, and I know Bill Belichick will be in next year, and it's like, I think this kind of calls for, scrutiny, how it's always been scrutinized. The Hall of Fame, panel has always been scrutinized. And, I've seen people go as far as saying the Hall of Fame is a joke, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure there's other players who play with it as well. So, when it comes time for these considerations and everything, people hear you talk. And, people hear you ignore them. People hear you not saying anything. So at the same time, it's like, you got to be careful what you put out there because it's going to, people hear back anything. I mean, honestly, it just, it was a crazy turn of events, but at the same time, I'm not too worried about it. I think it's just another development, kind of a talking topic, just kind of, raise a little shock value and everything like that. But Bill Belichick is still a very accomplished coach, still legendary, and just a matter of time. Just won't be this year. I mean, Eli Manning was snubbed again for the second year, and I don't think anybody's losing any sleep over that. I'm a Giants fan. I do think he's going to make it in as well. I'm not losing any sleep about him not being a first, second ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, I know his regular season career wasn't the best. Numbers wasn't the most gaudy. So, there's a different details and everything that comes into making the Hall of Fame. Where it's like, well, they all can't be first ballot. I'm surprised that Bill Belichick is the first ballot, but I mean, at the same time, when you think about how it's comprised and the process that it goes through, you actually think back to Bill Belichick at that podium almost every Sunday, chumping off writers and everything, chumping off the media every time, real truculent, just the hoodie on, the blank stares and the annoyed faces. That stuff come back to haunt you, even with your resume. And it's not fair. Life's not fair. But that's how, this is peer based. And, numbers and resume and everything is definitely considered, but it's also considered by peers. And some things just going to get delayed just by the small factor of what peers think. And that's what happened with Bill Belichick in the summer. Apologies if there's any audio issues and everything like that. Just minor little glitches and everything that we're getting through. But thank you all for staying on with me. Like, subscribe content. Like and subscribe to content coming at you once a week on Wednesdays with the sports and Saturdays with the music and other non-sports related topics. We definitely appreciate you all jumping on with us. Don't forget to tell a friend, share with everybody we know who want to talk sports or find any other content entertaining as well. Like I said, 4 things: like, subscribe, share, comment. Yeah. Also, I hear what Jimmy is saying, but we all know they cheated. Yeah, I mean, listen, some stigmas kind of just follow you. You know what I mean? And oh man, thanks a lot, Jay. Thanks, man. I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, man. Yeah, and it's like, that type of stigma stuff follows you. You know what I mean? Your whole career, your legacy that you built. I mean, you don't really get to pick and choose what you leave out. Everything comes along with you, good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good outweighs the bad with Belichick. That's why I say he'll get in. But, the shock of him not getting in first ballot, I was surprised that it wasn't guaranteed either. But, and again, when you look at and hear some of the things, it's not even so much the scandals to me, period. I think it's just the fact that it's just there's a lot of people out here with a coworker they don't like. There's a lot of people that go to work every day with a coworker that they are just 10 minutes away from putting hands on and getting fired. And we don't know how that interaction works on the NFL side of things when it comes to coaches and media and other personnel. And Bill Belichick. I heard somebody say Bill Belichick doesn't even have much of a coaching tree. I mean, he has coaches that's worked under him, but the tree is like, he's not that type of sociable type of coach. And like I said, he's like somebody that's really good at their job, but not the most social. And people didn't think that shouldn't matter, but it's this situation right here where it does. But it's the 30-minute mark. We got a half an hour left. I'm going to switch gears here. The NFL is, like I said, pretty much winding down. Just other than a couple of off-season drama getting ready to go into, I'm going to start doing my draft reviews and everything like that, looking at these mock drafts, seeing what the NFL draft is going to be looking like in the next 2 months, 3 months, April. Yeah, so interesting time. Excuse me. But definitely, NFL never stops for me. Sports never stops for me, period. But just that period, that lull where everything's kind of wrapping up. But the other league that I cover right now is just about to pick up. The NBA is going towards the trade deadline and the All-Star break. Had some really good games up to this point, really good players taking that jump. A lot of good news for me. I always follow the NBA. I know there's a lot of diehard fans like me, but then there's also a lot of casual fans who can't get into the NBA up to a certain point in the season. So like I said, this is kind of where it picks up a little bit for everybody. So me personally, I'm streaming and talking to my good people while the Cavaliers and the Lakers are playing. Cavaliers are at home. LeBron is currently snatching the rebound and bodying up with Lonzo Ball at the moment. So, yeah, definitely a good game on right now. Y'all should be checking that out if you're not talking to me, or if you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Go ahead and turn the game on ESPN while you're talking to me, and I can coach you through it. You know what I mean? This is a good time of the season, everyone. We'll go ahead and take the banner off so you can see the standings and where we're at. Running the standings check for everyone. You know what I mean? So you see at the top, you see the Pistons still holding steady, 34-11. You see the Celtics at 29-17. They are a game above my Knicks, who are 28-18. You know, the Raptors, we got a big game against them. They looking tough, young wings, young athletic wings, with a solid point guard in Emmanuel Quickly. We used to have him. The Cleveland Cavaliers are in the 5th spot. You know, they holding on. Trying to hold on, and they're playing the Lakers right now. And the Sixers are starting to pick it up as well. You start seeing these teams that are still in the mix in the East. Not too much of a drop off from the last time we were on. You see these bottom of the league teams are trying to do something, make a move, scramble, or just get in position for the next lottery pick. I'm gonna circle back to that Milwaukee Bucks situation there because that's getting interesting. That's getting real interesting. But yeah. As far as the Pistons, I'm looking at and very impressed with them every time I watch them. Cade Cunningham looks great. Jaden Duren looks great. The rest of their young core looks good. And as far as their role players and everything, they're playing ball at a top-notch level right now. I feel like they can give a lot of Western Conference teams a run if they happen to make it to the finals. So definitely going to keep an eye on whether the Pistons can really make that jump in the postseason. With that playoff series win. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Got to shout out Jaylen Brown. He looks amazing without Jason Tatum. He's playing MVP ball, man. You know what I mean? And it's like a lot of the questions of who was the real Finals MVP when they won the championship. And right now, Jaylen Brown is playing like a dog. He's improved. His ball handling has gotten better. His scoring has gotten better. Anthony Simons was a great pickup, trading Drew Holiday for him. You know, he's a solid offensive spark for them. You know, Peyton Pritchard at that guard position as well. That Boston team has been playing very exceptional lights out ball, man. Jaylen Brown has been playing almost MVP like ball. Definitely impressed. You know what I mean? What's going on, King? What's going on, E, man? Definitely appreciate y'all jumping on, man. Definitely. Yeah, man. But that Raptors team is very scary to me right now. It's a sneaky good team. I think Scotty Barnes is a star. I'm not sure about superstar, but he's definitely a star for that Raptors team. Great athlete, can fly up and down the court, very strong, can play multiple positions, can defend multiple positions. You got Brandon Ingram out there. Remember the Lakers had him for a while, the Pelicans had him for a while. He's a bucket out there. R.J. Barrett. They got bigs that can defend. I mean, they're a young team that is very balanced, a lot of depth. That's kind of like the case when you see these teams at the top. And looking down at the Cavaliers, I mean, listen, this is kind of a make or break season for them as far as their core because they probably have the worst salary cap situation. Excuse me. They are $40 million above the luxury tax. Between Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen and Darius Garland, this is a core that is definitely on the spot. They're in the 5th spot, and they were in the first spot in the first seed last year. So they've kind of take steps back, and it's looking like that window is closing. And they look a little too expensive not to close the window on it. You know what I mean? Close, make a run, get out the East, or do something. So look for the Cavaliers in the offseason or before the trade deadline, possibly, if they can find somebody that can dump the salary off to, or get rid of possibly Lonzo Ball. He's making $10 million. Is really breaking them right now. I mean, like, and it's a small amount, but it could change a lot as far as that cap space. Yeah, Cavaliers definitely going to be looking like a team that's probably looking to make a run as far as breaking up, allocating a lot of salaries on that team. Same with the Magic. When you get towards the trade deadline, I was listening to an analyst, Tom Aberstro, suggest that they should possibly trade Paolo Banchero, and it was met with a lot of feedback and outrage because that's their best player. I disagree as well. I don't think Paolo should be the one to be traded. I'm not sure if he and Franz Wagner are the duo that Orlando can make it work. They definitely need shooters. I'm not sure if anybody follows the Brooklyn Nets, but Michael Porter Jr. is a lights-out shooter and a scorer. Maybe they could possibly work out a trade, to get Michael Porter Jr. out there in Orlando and get them the shooting that they need. And they can possibly make that run because they're very stagnant right now. They're at the same point they were at for the past 3 years straight. So they're the definition of mid, despite all those parts that they put together in Orlando. So something got to shake. Yeah, you see the Hawks after trading Trae Young. They're kind of middle of the pack, headed towards dead in the water. But if you're the Hawks, you're not worried about that because they're in draft lottery heaven right now as far as the pick that they own. And I'm going to get to that side of things in a minute. We switch gears. Let's see what's going on in the West. Yes, sir. The OKC Thunder are not making anything suspenseful for anybody else. They're at the top. Wemby and the Spurs are right at the top right there with them, along with the Nuggets, even without Jokic, which looks scary because when Jokic gets back, it's going to be like back to true form. It's going to be, that's a scary thought. The Houston Rockets, without a point guard, they still have KD. They still have a young athletic core. It's probably come playoff time, but probably when the game slows down, they're probably going to use they're probably definitely going to need a good floor general. But at the same time, and KD's, what they picked him up for is, be that guy late in the game and when they need a bucket. And hopefully he's shown that he's still got enough in the tank to possibly do that for him. But I'm telling you this, Alfred Sengun is the guy that has to step up for Houston. All right, KD, we know what KD is going to do. Sengun is the star of that team. I mean, Amen Thompson, of course, is also a star of that team. They're young stars. But Sengun is the all-around guy. He's kind of like the B-plus version of Jokic, and he's going to have to step it up another notch to help KD, take some of that pressure off of KD, and put KD in a better place to close games for them. You know what I mean? If he can step up and have big nights for them in the playoffs, then it takes the pressure off KD to where he can just hit a couple of big shots, or a couple of big possessions, and he doesn't have to exert himself for long playoff spurts and everything at his age. So, Alfred Sengun, you hear here first, is my expectation. I'm putting expectations on him in order for Houston to really make noise in the postseason. And of course, for Laker Nation, interesting scenario. They're still winning at the 5th seed. A lot of drama and skepticism and worry about what they're going to do in the playoffs. But right now, they're still one of the top teams in the West. Bron's playing, pretty well for his age. Playing very well for his age. Of course, finding the hands of time. Luka, Austin Reeves are in and out of lineups and everything like that. But come playoff time, I think a lot of speculation outside of the top 4 teams. There's a lot of speculation about how far any of those teams in the West can really go, even though, been a lot of upsets and everything in the postseason. This one here kind of looks like, top 4 teams, and it could be a shakeup between them. But the Suns, they look pretty balanced and good. The Timberwolves look pretty good, but those are those 5 through 7 spots. You got the Lakers, Suns, and Timberwolves. Those are teams that are competitive, but probably going to need some things to work out in their favor for them to steal a series. I mean, I'm not trying to say somebody should be injured, but I mean, I don't see those 3 teams beating the top 4 teams at full strength. So, you see the Warriors desperate for a trade. No Jimmy Butler. Trade deadline's coming up. You know, they're one of those teams. The Timberwolves are one of those teams. I mean, the irony is that a lot of these teams that are looking to make a trade are teams that are almost financially strapped for making one. So it's tough for them to see how they're going to make salaries match up. So how they make these trades make at the February 5th deadline is going to be very interesting. I'm going to be sitting here with popcorn waiting to see how it works because typically in this situation, in this climate where teams are over the tax apron, teams are over the luxury tax, it's going to be hard to make trades with salaries lining up where you're going to probably have to wait till the offseason where a lot of these contracts expire, teams got more cap room, and the draft is the best time to make a trade, especially if you're going to trade stars because, you get draft picks, you get capital. That's kind of the way you move in today's NBA is get as much draft capital as possible. Yeah, organized chaos, you are absolutely right. The salary cap is killing a lot of teams. That's kind of the idea. Adam Silver doesn't want dynasty. He doesn't want great teams with stars on them to add another star. If anything, he wants them to get stars up to the teams that don't have a star. Depleted rosters, teams with cap space. There are 14 teams in the NBA right now that are pretty much slated to pay the luxury tax this offseason and for the season. And at the same time, those are the same teams that are trying to get better, trying to make moves. I mean, it's kind of like you're kind of stuck stagnant. You look at, I'll give you the 14 teams right now while I still time. There are 14 teams that are trying to make moves that are about to pay the luxury tax. And like I said, Cleveland Cavaliers are one of them. Okay, the Knicks are one of them. The Warriors are one of them. The Mavericks, the Timberwolves, the Celtics. Of course, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they both have super max contracts. So, of course, they're tying it up. So they just wait for Tatum to get back. But, yeah, the Sixers, Embiid and Paul George. The Lakers got LeBron and Luka. You know what I mean? Houston, they just picked up KD. They still got a little bit of cap space, but they got a lot of salaries on there as well. And then they got to extend a lot of those younger players that they got. Clippers, Kawhi and James Harden. You can see them. They're a repeater, and they're just now below the first apron. I mean, they had to get rid of they had to shed a lot of salaries and to still keep, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. They repeat offenders as far as the tax apron as well. So, I mean, Orlando as well is fighting with the apron as well. So, a lot of these teams right now, these are the teams you kind of have. And you're going to have to be able to, in order for you to make moves, you're going to have to trade some of these guys like to where the salaries match up perfectly. And because you can't take on any salaries more than you can give out when you're over the apron. So, I see a lot of these trade rumors. I see a lot of things going around, but at the same time, in reality, February 5th can come and it could be like the last year's deadline where Luka was the only real blockbuster trade, and that happened because that was a flat-out swap for AD's salary. You know what I mean? Those salaries just had to match up for it to happen. The year before, there wasn't much suspense to the trade deadline either because a lot of these teams that are over the cap paying the luxury tax, they can't make any moves to get better. The only thing they can do is just dump off their salaries to whoever has the type of room, the cap space that can take them on. So that's a very interesting dynamic. And also got to you the dumping grounds. 4 teams that have enough cap space to take on contracts that teams want to get rid of. You know what I mean? These are 4 teams. And one of them you could kind of strike off the list. The Wizards, who picked up Trae Young. They can't do anything. They had all the cap space in the world. And once they got Trae Young now, and they got a young core around him. Trae Young's just kind of sitting out, healing, while this team kind of just goes through the motions, building through the draft. So Trae Young can kind of come back to a whole nother young team in place. Matter of fact, they have the youngest talent. They have the youngest lineup in the NBA right now. The average age of the Washington Wizards starters are 20 years old. So they got a very, very young team. They've been building through the draft and have abundance of cap space, and they were able to absorb a star salary like Trae Young. So for them, that's a good move. And I can be honest with you, you might want to watch out for the Wizards next year because, they are young, they can play defense, and they just landed a star point guard. So that'd be interesting. I mean, I think that CBA is kind of giving these bad teams a chance to get better. The Brooklyn Nets also have a lot of cap space. Like I said, they got Michael Porter Jr. out there. He's probably the only big contract that they got out there, and he's only making like $30 million. They got plenty of cap space with a bunch of young draft picks that they got in place. So I can see them in the offseason trying to make a trade, trying to sign a free agent, or trying to get something, a star that they can put there in Brooklyn, fairly big market as well. So that'll be interesting. The Hornets also have a lot of cap space as well. There was rumors that the Knicks possibly looking at moving Karl Anthony Towns there. I'm not sure what we can get back for him, but I'm listening. But and then on the West Coast, who do we have? Utah Jazz have cap space as well. So it's very important to know who's the teams that are over the cap, and it's also to know who's the teams that got cap space, because you might wake up on February 5th and find a star level player on one of those teams, and like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? The Kings, another team that's just looking to take on salaries. They're not really playing for anything right now. They're just kind of back picking up from scratch, building through the draft. New Orleans Pelicans, they're 12-37, worst record in the West. And I tell you right now, for anybody who's a Hawks fan, this is a good time to be a Hawks fan if you're looking at the draft, because that Pelicans pick is a swap between them and Milwaukee, and that pick is yours. The Atlanta Hawks. So, goodbye Trae Young, and hello to a plethora of draft picks that are going to be available in a very deep draft class. Yep, organized chaos. This is why these organizations, I'm not trying to hear that these players are playing too many games, costing them too much money to keep them. Time is money. Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you this, there's a lot of talent, but now the question is, do you want to pay $40, $50 million to keep them? And, the tax aprons and stuff, this game is about depth more than it's about stars anymore. This is kind of the NBA that Adam Silver envisioned, where it's going from superstars and stars to teams. And in order for teams to get better, the thing is depth. And they got to be able to pay a nice balanced roster. They're going to reach into the first and second aprons. They want to do it for a championship contender. You know what I mean? They want to do it for a team that's really playing for a contender. If you're a team in the middle of the pack and you're over the cap, well, those teams are going to be looking to trade people. But the dilemma is, who wants them? You know what I mean? Like, are we going to be able to make a move for these guys, make the salaries match up? I mean, the demand for trades to work now are more stringent than ever before, especially if you're a middle of the pack team trying to get better. I mean, you're almost being forced into just giving up a star just to dump the salary and living with the results. Like I said, if you can get draft capital out of these, good luck. Because some of these teams don't want to give up draft picks because they know you're trying to get rid of a team. You're trying to dump a salary. You're not doing me any favors by me taking on your salary, so I'm not giving you a draft. You know what I mean? So this is why Trae Young didn't command any draft picks. This is why Luka only commanded one draft pick. You know what I mean? So a lot of these star trades, the teams wait with urgency. Teams wait. If you lack urgency, well, guess what? Your player's value is dropping. And funny I bring that up while I talk about value dropping, because I got the alert this afternoon that there's one big key component that I've been itching to see get traded for a couple of years now, because it was almost inevitable. And it's kind of like when you deny the inevitable, the value goes down in the trade market. That could apply more to this top 3 player in the league right now. Still, we're talking about 2-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. They say he's ready for a new home at the February 5th NBA trade deadline or in the offseason, as several rival teams make aggressive offers to the Milwaukee Bucks for him, and the franchise is starting to listen source. Shams posted that, of course, very reliable. But definitely interesting news. Giannis, like I said, easily top 5, and not 5. We could possibly go into maybe top 3 discussion, or top 2 as far as his value in the league. So, yeah, this is going to be very interesting. But I also felt like Milwaukee held on too long for this. This is a trade, and I know they try to do everything they could to put a winner around Giannis. You know, but one of the definite signs it was time to move on from Giannis was when Damian Lillard popped his Achilles towards Achilles. That was as clear as day. Like, hey, it's time to really just, Giannis is our franchise player. He's brought us everything. It's hard to let go of him because it's hard to find another franchise player in a market like Milwaukee. But at the same time, you know, there is no way for Milwaukee to get better. They have no cap. They have no draft capital. They have no cap space. They're still paying Damian Lillard, who's the highest paid player in the NBA. Damian Lillard's not even on their team. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that again. Damian Lillard's the highest paid player in the NBA. He's not even on their team. And they have that salary on their books. There's no way for the Milwaukee Bucks to get better without trading Giannis. And I think they finally realized that once Giannis strains his calf for like the second or third time. And now he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. This is what happens when you hesitate. This is what happens when you overthink. There were plenty of. Can you imagine if you traded Giannis 2 years ago, the type of trade offers you could have gotten? I mean, the San Antonio Spurs cleaned up in the draft. You could have took all of it. I know you didn't want to see the idea of Giannis and Wemby together. That's a scary thought. But there's nothing you can get out of Milwaukee. But Giannis also mentioned that he wanted to be in big markets. He wanted to be in the Golden State. He wanted to be in the LA. He wanted to be in the New York. Not sure how those teams, like I've shown, are going to work around the cap, or are going to work around the tax apron, luxury tax. But it's going to be very interesting to see what type of trade packages are going to come up before February 5th, and when February 5th comes, if Giannis is either gone by then, or if there's even any type of discussions or any type of, because I mean these type of, like I said, I've seen enough rumors about Giannis being traded without Milwaukee even consenting to it, saying, "Hey, we're not trading Giannis." So now we are at this point. The inevitable has happened, and I don't think we're going to get enough from Giannis where you're not going to have to start from scratch. You don't own draft picks for the next couple of seasons. We're still stretching out Dame Lillard's salary. Like I said, this is long overdue. Organized chaos said, might as well give him away, preferably to the Bay. Yeah, I mean, and that's honestly, that's what it comes down. I mean, everybody wants to see Giannis and Steph. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Giannis and Steph together. I think Giannis and Steph will make a great combination. Of course, the way Giannis dominates the paint, Steph stretches the floor. Question is, that type of trade, you're going to have to, how are they going to make those salaries line up? Who's going to be moved? I mean, do the Bucks want Jimmy Butler? Do they want Draymond Green? Do they want Jonathan Kuminga? I mean, how many of those parts do they want? Can they make those salaries line up? And then, like I said, it's going to be tough to get somebody from Golden State because Damian Lillard's salary is still on their books. So it's like, this is a lot to ask for. You know what I mean? It is a lot to ask for to put Giannis, get Giannis out of Milwaukee by February the 5th after you done held on to him this long. So, it's going to be interesting how this plays out, but I don't see this happening. Or if I do see it, if it does happen, it's going to be one of the most rushed trades. I see it happening in the middle of the night, like the Luka trade, kind of, because that's the only way you can really pull this off. Where somebody's like, just get rid of him. You know what I mean? Just trade him, just make the trade happen. But I think a lot of big market teams are sitting back hoping. The Miamis, the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the Torontos. I mean, everybody imaginable is probably just sitting there waiting, rubbing their hands together like Birdman, trying to figure out how you're going to get Giannis, how you're going to make these salaries line up. Because if you do get Giannis and he's healthy, this is, like I said, a top 5 player in the NBA. Okay, he can make a ton of difference. He's nonstop double-doubles, he's a great passer, great defensive player. A lot of teams that's in the playoff spot right now looking for a big. There's nobody more desperate for a big. Probably nobody more desperate for Giannis than Golden State. And honestly, I can say I'm a little desperate for him as well because I would love to move on from Carl Anthony Towns. For $53 million a year, I'd rather have Giannis. If Milwaukee would take Giannis, take Karl Anthony Towns, and whatever else they need. Whatever's not nailed to the floor can go. So, I mean, but at the same time, you also have the concerns because Giannis is playing on a cap string. And you're trying to manage him so it doesn't, lead to anything more serious. A lot of stars go down most inopportune time. It usually starts with a cap string. But at the same time, like I said, teams are going to make their gamble. Teams are going to make their dice roll if the deal is enticing enough. It's really going to come down to restrictions. The NBA is really tight on restrictions, and I think a lot of teams are just, especially the teams that are in contention. A lot of the teams that are really top contenders, they actually have a lot of cap space, and they actually have a lot of draft capital, like OKC. Because there's a thought that keeps me up at night. I'm glad the Clippers are doing well, but if the Clippers don't continue to do well and they go right back down that slide of lottery team, that pick goes to OKC. And I believe that Utah pick also may go to OKC. And that's scary to think. Because I was praising the Atlanta Hawks for having a pick in this draft, in this very deep draft class, but the last thing you want is the reigning champ having lottery picks in this draft class. Because I'm going to show you a clip before we go. And it's a little preview as I'm starting gearing more into that NCAA basketball and to get towards March Madness. And I'm going to be looking at a lot of young talent draft stocks and everything like that. I'm big on drafts. What happened last weekend in college basketball was almost unprecedented. Illinois' Keaton Wagler had 46 points at Purdue. BYU's AJ DeBessa had 43 points versus Utah. Houston's Kingston Flemings had 42 points versus Texas Tech. Houston's Cam Boozer had 32, and Arkansas's Darius Acuff had 31. This was an historic day for a freshman class in college basketball that many are dubbing now the best college freshman class ever. But that's kind of, I don't want to go in that. We got to wait for the rest of the season to play out. I want to see the tournament and how these young guys rise up to the tournament, and we can really have that discussion then. Because I remember Carmelo Anthony took his team to an NCAA championship as a freshman. I know Anthony Davis that took his Kentucky team to an NBA championship as a freshman. All right, so definitely going to be looking at these young guys. And one of the guys not pictured as a prospective number one pick, the projected number one pick, Darren Peterson at Kansas. Another one who's been dubbed as Kobe Bryant-like skill set, 3-level scorer, been compared to a lot of the elite scorers at a very early age. Some say he scores as easily as Kevin Durant, like 6'5", 6'6". Darren Peterson is definitely another one of those legit prospects. But yeah, this is how it all ties into the NBA because these young guys are immediate buckets right now. And if you're a team building through the draft, if you're a team that's hitting on draft picks and everything, and if you're a team like OKC who built their team off hitting off draft picks, the last thing you want is one of those guys on a reigning champion. But if you're an Atlanta Hawks fan, you definitely want to see one of these point guards who can move on from Trae Young with as well. Kingston Flemings is legit. Darius Acuff is legit as well. So a lot of great point guards in this draft as well. It's going to be deep across the draft board. But yeah, this is definitely the future right here. And this rookie class is amazing as well in the NBA. The rookie game, the rookie versus sophomore game should be very interesting to watch. I got the rookies in that one. We'll be back talking that type of coverage as well. Definitely unshackled. Do you think Durant and the Turkish Terminator have a better chance at the Western Championship than Durant and Giannis? I'm going to be transparent and say Durant and Giannis can definitely wreck things as a duo, but as far as depth, it's going to cost them depth to bring Durant and Giannis together. How many of those young players, those young role players, those Tari Eason, those guys that do the dirty work, that hit those big shots and everything like that, is it worth your role players in the depth that keeps you in games? Can Giannis and Kevin Durant be that top-heavy duo to carry them over the top? Because it's been a while since we've seen a team with just the two stars and, the limited role players and limited depth win it all. I'm not saying that, Kevin Durant and Giannis, they definitely have the star power between them, but, these teams now operate off this amount of depth where they can't even sit down without, losing a whole bunch of points and not being able to defend anything. Once you lose your depth, you've seen what Denver looked like when Jokic sits down last year. This is why their depth has gotten so much better. Now that Jokic is out, they can actually win games. You know what I mean? But last season that wasn't the case. You know, when Joker didn't have depth and he had, you know, Aaron Gordon and Porter and all those salaries and they were over the tax they thing. Joker couldn't even sit down without, you know, that team giving up big leads, or he had to come back and overcome big leads when he got back on the floor. So with Giannis and KD, and this is what Adam Silver designed. It was like to not have these stars put together. He'd rather have one star with a bunch of solid role players like the old school teams and try to promote parity. Where if you put those two together, it's going to be really hard to have enough help for them where they can sit down and, you know, the bench can go in there and actually put up good periods, put good periods without them. So yeah, it's going to be a tough situation if you try to put Giannis in there with another star. And that's even more reason why, like, you know, as much as everybody would love Giannis, what's it going to cost you? You know what I mean? Like, and that's the inevitable balance that we're running into. Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it all plays out. It's going to be more headlines that pop up throughout the next course of a couple of days. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the deadline, even though, like I said, it's really going to be tough to see how these teams get out of these salaries and move on. Maybe they can one of those teams that can actually take on some of those salaries. Because if you're Utah or Brooklyn or one of those or the Hornets and everything like that, you need players or some sort of stars to get, you know, your fans sitting in there. So I mean, I can see them taking on a salary that's probably considered undesirable, you know, especially on a season where it's not going anywhere. You know, I would not be surprised is I would not be surprised if, you know, some of these teams just trade their stars off to the middle of nowhere just to get them off the books. Yeah, Giannis' brother is going to. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see where these stars end up at because it may not be on these contenders that everybody thinks they're going to end up on. I mean, at the end of the day, some of these teams are just going to be stuck in the force in their hand to say, look, you'll take this salary and give me a draft pick, you can have it. I mean, that's kind of like what Adam Silver is pushing, like helping bad teams get better, helping bad teams get better by landing stars. And, you know, good teams have to go back and build them through the draft. You know, I feel like you're gonna have to keep hitting on these draft picks. And I mean, this is the draft to do it. I mean, like I said, in the offseason, I think it's gonna get real interesting because these young guys are gonna be coming in and everybody's gonna want to move forward with them. You're gonna see a lot of these old salaries get cleared off the book. I think while the trade deadline might be a dud, I mean, hopefully it might be giving some sort of headline I can react to you all real quick. Other than that, I don't see much suspense around the deadline. I think the offseason, and most importantly, the draft is probably really going to see the most transactions. So, yeah, Case's brother's coming. Oh man, you guys are great, man. You all are great, man. Thanks for putting up with me. You all been great with the interaction and the great discourse, great conversation, and everything like that. I'm glad to give you all the sports coverage. Like I said, I'll be back on Saturday, and I will be in touch with all my viewers and subscribers to let you all know on Saturday. I'll let you know the time frame. I'm looking towards a later Saturday night type of vibe, type of thing, maybe 9:30 ish, where we can, you know, I want to tap into the hip hop that's been going on out here. There's a lot of great music over the past 10 years, really, and it's really picked up over the last 4 or 5 years so as well. So I think there's a lot of coverage needs to be done on that. I'm working towards a lot of other cool topics and content for you all as well. So you'll see those advertised throughout the course of the days upcoming. But thank you all for jumping on with me. I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all are amazing. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, tell a friend, tell a friend. Definitely going to keep coming at you all with more and more. Instagram handle on the bottom of the screen. This is Left Fresh. That's also my TikTok as well. This is Left Fresh. But yeah, I'll be right back at you all I'll be back at you all with the sports next week. I'll see you all Saturday. I thank you all. All right. Much love. Until Saturday, y'all. Left Fresh Podcast signing out. Have a great night.